So, Chris, speaking of having these conversations, because these conversations are very important, bringing all of these different diverse perspectives to the table. Not all of these perspectives are tech savvy or Web3 savvy, but many of them are not any less important for not being savvy. And so a lot of the communication work you're doing around championing these technologies, I've followed, and one that I thought was that really stood out to me back in March. I don't know if you remember this, but you did an interview with Authority Magazine, where you perhaps a written interview where you used what I think is one of the best analogies for how NFTs can be used as enablers for a new kind of digital economy. So you likened what NFTs can do to what standardized shipping containers did for unlocking billions in global economic activity. Just wanted to ask you quickly, could you share that with our audience really quick?
Yeah, no, I'm glad. Thank you for reading that, number one. Yeah, I do remember that one. So, and you guys, again, you guys will relate to this from, forget the technology, right? Just think about practical, what happened in the economy. When we stopped putting stuff on wooden boats, right? Where they were in nets and they were in barrels and they were like in different shaped things, and they stacked on a boat, and then you had to put all the crew on there and all the food and provisions, and then you had to sail it across the ocean to go trade. When we stopped doing that, and somebody invented a standardized protocol called a steel box, 9 feet wide by 45 feet long or 20 feet long. Those are the two standards, 9 by 20, 9 by 45. All of a sudden, instead of wood ships, we built these massive steel iron barges, right? And we stack these things wide and high as you can imagine. And it didn't matter if on this one there was coffee beans and in this one it was BMWs. What did that do for global commerce? What did that do for the ability for e-commerce and drop shipping businesses to take off? It made it possible, right, for more product to move more places in shorter amount of time for less cost, in a more secure way. It made it easier to insure, right? It, like, think about all the impacts of a steel box. Now, what is a steel box? It's a container. That's all it is. But because it's standardized, or because there's a way to program cranes and things at ports, we can now automate or increase the automation of loading and unloading. Because it's 9 by 45 or 9 by 20, it could be fit very easily without changing it from the ship it came off to the flatbed that's going to take it the last mile to the customer. And I believe when shipping containers got invented, the exponential lift was somewhere over the next couple of years. It was like $20 billion worth of new product on the oceans at any given minute of any 24-hour day.
Wow.
More than before, right? So a container is an easy way to think about a non-fungible token or a fungible token. So what's fungible? Fungible means like a dollar bill. I have a dollar bill, you have a dollar bill, right? They're fungible, meaning they might have different serial numbers on them, but they're interchangeable.
Right.
Right? Like if I give you mine and you give me yours, we didn't do anything different.
Yeah.
There's nothing unique.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fair trade. It was equal, right? A non-fungible, the easiest example I have for everybody is a human being, right? There's no two human beings, even twins. There's no two human beings that are exactly alike. So every human being, every baby that's born is a one of one. So a non-fungible token is a container that holds something, or the representation something. Primarily what it holds is it holds the pointer to a ledger, i.e. a blockchain, where that actual value or asset is. Very rarely does it actually hold the thing. It actually almost never holds the thing.
Right.
Right. So when you say, oh, it's a JPEG or it's a Bored Ape, right? That's all it is. Well, it's not even that. It's just the location where that specific one of one Bored Ape is findable on a blockchain. It's kind of like the Dewey Decimal System in the library.
Right.
It's not the book itself. It's where you can find the book.
Right.
The book itself is stored somewhere on a physical shelf, right? Or on a server if it's an ebook, much like the Bored Ape is stored on IPFS or the cloud, or it's stored on Arweave, or it's stored on some storage thing. The ownership says I own the one of one. I own the location of that copy, and I own whatever rights come with that. So think about that. If I can program a container with any number of things, I can program it to shut off in certain special economic zones. I can program it to be not viewable in certain censored zones. I can program it to spend or not spend, or burn or not burn based on a certain geo target, i.e. a concert or a game. So I now sell you a ticket, but instead of getting a QR code, you get an NFT, and you have it on your wallet, on your mobile phone. And the minute you walk across a certain geofence, right, it burns that ticket. I know that you've entered the stadium. If when you walk into certain parts of the stadium, it unlocks a coupon for 20% off beer or Coke, right? Whatever, I can make it do whatever I want.
Right.
So what we've done is, so I can tokenize real world assets that are hard to move, like pallets of gold. So how do I move a pallet of gold? I don't. That's too risky, right? If I move it, what if I lose one? What if one breaks? What if somebody steals it? What if, right? So
what if the barge sinks, right? Then it's gone.
What if the barge sinks? So I'm not going to move it, right? It's going to stay where it is. But how do I transfer it easily? How do I transfer it across borders frictionlessly? How do I do that? Well, I wrap it in a token, right? And that token is what trades hands.
So, Chris, what I love about this shipping container analogy is it frames NFTs as simply a new way to do something we've always done, which is transport value. And I think that speaks to how you've been approaching technology. This entire conversation is, it's just a manifestation of human behavior. We've always done this, right? But
we've always done it, and we've always done it. And the caveat is, though, we think linearly, and we always will, because we've evolved over millions of years or thousands of years, right? Our brain evolves over thousands of years. We invent complexity, back to Rebecca's book from 2011, in picoseconds, right? Nanoseconds, picoseconds, however the fastest you can think, almost at the speed of light. So why I say that is because, yes, there's a lot to be learned from history, because this is not new. It's a new expression, and it's a new utility that was not previously available to us. Much like prior to steel, we couldn't have made a steel container. Once steel was invented, 100 years later, or whatever it was, 50 years later, somebody made a steel container. Then that container was a more cost-effective, more efficient, more secure way of moving goods at scale across an ocean, right? So it had exponential increase to the global impact of a financial economy that we all live and work in. NFTs will do that the same way, but exponentially higher than that, orders of magnitude higher than that. Why? Because physical containers can only hold what? Physical goods. A token, a non-fungible token, for instance, or a digital token, can hold representations of physical and digital goods. It's the arbitrage of bits and atoms, and it's frictionless. It can move across in seconds, not months, not weeks. It can change hands in micropayments without the fees associated with credit cards or Swift banks or things like that, right? So these things create orders of magnitude cost reduction. And it's also something to be held in a wallet that isn't physical. So anybody that has any access to a mobile device, which is pretty much the whole world coming up over the next 2 years, there's not going to be a human on this planet that wants one that won't have one, $1,000 supercomputer in their hand. And so all of a sudden we bring 3 billion new people over the next 3 years into the commercial economy that have never been bankable, never been identifiable, because you can't get a bank account in the current system without an identity. 2.5 billion people don't have an identity. What is a human? A human's non-fungible. What if we could wrap every human in a non-fungible token that they owned, and then with zero knowledge proofs, they could use to connect that data feed to the relevant sources, governmental or not, to be verifiable. And meanwhile, they could get a wallet. And if they didn't ever have to transact in fiat, they don't need the KYC or AML. They can just basically transact in whatever tokens they're willing to trade amongst their community. And so all of a sudden now you have all these economies that emerge that level the playing field.